So here we go. So thanks for the invitation. My name is Dirk Heistak. I'm sitting in the western part of Germany, and I'm happy to join your meeting, although I cannot hear anything, but obviously you can hear me. So if there are any comments, maybe or questions, I could answer them after the short presentation, because I cannot see them right now. Who I am, who we are as the company SiteLog. It's a construction logistics company and site service company located in Germany. As I said, the city is called Essen, close to Düsseldorf in the western part, the center of Europe. We've got subsidiaries in Austria and Switzerland, and started running our business in Denmark in the beginning of this year. As I said, the headquarters is in Essen, and there are at about 15 regional branches in the German-speaking surrounding of Germany itself. So we've got two main focus areas. This is on the one hand the site logistics service, and the infrastructure and design planning of logistics, of construction logistics, and the execution of doing some logistics on site. We founded the company in 7.5 years ago with 10 employees, and now we had a little development the last 7 years, and it's now up to about 250 employees. Some of them are construction engineers, some of them are architects, some of them are painters or workers, or let's say handymen. So we've got a complete different education regarding to our employees all over Germany and the other countries. One of our shareholder is the family-owned Zech Group. And Zech Group, it's a man, it's Kurt Zech, located in Bremen in the northern part of Germany, and he owns one of the leading German real estate and construction groups with a turnover of about, I guess, not that far away from 4 billion euros, and 99% of that turnover is made in Germany. We've got, let's say, three strategic focuses. I think you know what I'm talking about when we look at the difficulties getting good colleagues, employees, and that's a big thing for us, a big issue. Even as you can see that we had a big growth the last years. So this is one of our focus, to get potentials or good experienced staff. The second is we've got an own IT solutions department who creates and who programs all our logistic tools or access control systems. Its own created, its own programmed, and that's one thing what's really important for us, to own that, to have it as an in-house competence, and we'd like to advance and to develop it the following years. And the third step, or the third focus, is we really need to develop and create sustainable services. So that's as a short overview. I'm one of the shareholders and managing directors of SiteLog, by the way, and I'm a construction engineer as well, and very curious about development of sustainable services, but even for the logistics services and the logistic data of construction sites. So a short overview about our portfolio. So the site concepts and planning. We've got an extensive design team for the so-called DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland. We've got our own access control and security to minimize legal client risk and to make sure that that the data set is really safe. Only to give accepted personnel entry to the site, and only legal and well-known people should get entry to the site, and that is one of our jobs. By the way, I spent the last weekend in London, and obviously, as I saw 10 years ago in London, it's very common and very normal, or usually they have these access control with barriers or something like that. And Germany is, let's say, not really 100% of the sites do have an access control. It's more the really big and huge construction sites do it, but it's not the rule. It's not a legal thing to do it this way. You can use hundreds of other things and turnstiles, or use nothing. Trying to make the regulation about the contract. So then we organize the supply chain on site, and that's why we need some good, experienced logistics managers. The way we work is that these logistic managers use our own logistics tool, as I said, created and programmed by our own IT department. And actually, or currently, we have about 80 huge projects in Germany where we provide the projects with these logistics managers and that logistics tool. And there's a slot. It stands for Site Log Online Tool Manager to give some logistics data for the supply chain on site. And the access control system is combined with that system. Second slide for our portfolio, regarding to sustainability things, we look for the waste management and try to find an individual concept for each project. We support the site or our customers with the temporary power and water solutions and electricity. John asked me, is John not there? But you can hear me, yeah? Are you in now, Dirk? Yeah, hopefully, yes. Okay, still good. Thank you. So then all the temporary stuff temporary things on site, even as I said, the temporary power and water solutions, all the containers for the site, the waste management for site, some lifts for site, some cranes for site. So everything what is needed temporary, we are able to provide. So to make sure that the let's say the secondary, not the main issue on site, but the facility management on site is managed well professional. That is our job. So we don't build anything for the building itself or in the building, or we bring nothing into the wall of the building, but we care about the surrounding. We care about all these logistic services who are needed for create the site or for build the building. And by the way, we do a lot of HSE management, which increases over the last years as well. So this is only one slide of our, or the starting page of our slot manager, and you can have an overview. This is the one of our projects, and what we see is that there is sometimes a lack of information, and information are data as well. And we try to give all the employees, all the workers, all the stakeholders and shareholders of the site to give an overview about the logistic things on site. So that means on the right hand, there's only one short overview about how many bookings, so regarding to transports and trucks on the site, do we have currently? How many requests are there? So the terminal means turnstiles in that. Now this is a small project. There are not that much people, only 43 currently present on the construction project. So wage statements, oh, they are overdue. This is not a good message. So I have to call my my colleague, my logistics manager, because that's a number I don't like. That's too much of overdue. So this means there are a lot of information we need, a lot of data you could or should bring in to helping organize the supply chain. So you have in these bookings, I don't have the slide now because I think this is too less time, but in this booking system, you can see when you've got a slot to bring your material on site, you can see where it should be, handled, where there's a laydown area, and where's the floor, for example, where it should be brought in, so the workers can use the material to work with it. And this is how we try to organize the logistics on site. Maybe for some of you, it's let's say in Germany we would say it's cold coffee, so it's obsolete, or not obsolete, but it's old-fashioned. Maybe for Germany it's brand new. So so this is how we try to figure out the logistics on site. And our thing is that sometimes even using this kind of IT solutions, even using or even providing the projects with our really experienced logistics manager, there are a lot of things on the site, and we call it our real material world. Sometimes it's a kind of exponential chaos. So there are a lot of information still missing, although we try to get these information about material, about the truck, about the surrounding, about the constraints of the material, the circumstances, how we should handle that, how big the things are, or the pellets are, how heavy they are, how we could move them from one point to the other. But it's sometimes hard work, and sometimes it's for us impossible to get these information. Although we are very sure, as we discussed that in Brussels a couple of weeks before, although everybody knows the data must be there, but not for us or not for the guy we were talking to. Or nobody knows where the data of the material, of the transport or whatever can be or could be. So there's no rules of using the data, of using the information. So that means sometimes we've got either no material ID, or maybe we have an ID, but it's not fitting to the material, or not fitting to our system, or not fitting to the system of the employees on site, or something like that. For you information, we've got an institute who works out a study every year for the German construction market. And the German construction market has got about, in total, about 330 billion euro turnover. And they say that, and it's a professional worked out study, that 10% of this turnover is the cost for error, so the error rate in our industry, due to untuned deliveries or lost and found, as we said, searching for material. Sometimes they throw material away or to the waste because they don't know where it could be for, and it's easier to bring new material on site than searching old material which is already there. And this is a big thing on German construction sites, and there's no standard. I think this is one of your issues and one of your tasks. There are no standards, maybe for the industry, yes, yeah, as we discussed as well in Brussels. Yes, there might be, or there is a standard, but nobody knows on site how to handle these standards or how to get the information from the standard data on the material. And this is really a big thing. And if you don't believe me, I showed these slides before. You can trust in me that this is maybe not a typical construction site in Germany. Okay, but this is no art of construction site. This is a real world on construction sites sometimes. And here you can see there must be a big thing to handle these things, obviously, or to handle the material, or to find a way to organize all these things. And obviously there's a lot of information lack, and obviously a big thing not having the right information for in the right time and at the right place. Other examples are these. So then the material is there, and the workers on site has to be very creative to handle these materials, because they've had no information before how to work with that material, how to carry that material. So by the way, this carry bag or whatever was built on themselves. This is sometimes very funny if you're not involved in that, but if it is your project, it's not funny anymore. All these things, so huge things of 6 or 7 meters length, who are not compatible to some hoists or lifts to bring material from the ground floor to the 20th floor or something like that, and it does not fit. And so this is a big issue for the logistics. But by the way, it's a big issue for health and safety when I look at these slides. Nobody knows what about the weight of the transport? What about the size of material, how to bring it in? And then there are at least more than one employee working for only one of these pallets to bring it in. And all the customers are going to ask me, hey, what the hell is that increasing the cost for the personnel? And I'm going to show him these slides and these pictures. And I told him there, this is the point, because we don't know what you bring to the site and how heavy that is and how we can organize it in a better way. So this is our real material world. Sometimes I'm not happy about this situation, and it's developing. So to be honest, it's developing, yes, but there's so much option for development that we've had a lot of work to do to make it really professional. And one of these, that was one point, one example as well, lost and found. This is one of the examples where the employees who ordered this material and brought in this material looked for this material 3 months later. And even if you can imagine, there are white papers on it, so it is already tagged. But 3 months later, they were walking around, looking at this material, and they've had no idea and no clue where this material was for. So they throw it into the waste and ordered brand new material instead of using that was already there. So this is our world sometimes, and we try to go little steps to improve all these things of logistics. So that means sometimes it's a bit like this. It's on site. The need for, let's say, plaster boards, 1, 2, 3 pallets, and we are lucky if this guy or this lady knows where these plaster boards or these pallets should be for. Sometimes they don't know. They got only the information. Okay, we need 3 plaster boards and or plaster boards and 3 pallets of it on Friday. but nobody knows where exactly for. So we're happy if there is this information. The second is maybe from the purchasing part to the manufacturer or the wholesaler. Okay, please send me this. Sometimes the purchasing tries to figure out the price and says, okay, let's take 5 pallets or 10 pallets because it's a bit cheaper. The manufacturer or wholesaler has got the point that there are maybe 15 pallets for the region, and I'm going to send you these. I cannot be sure if the material will be there on Friday. Maybe it will come on Monday or Tuesday, and maybe I will have a 40 tons truck, or maybe I won't have a 40 tons truck. Maybe it's a 7.5 truck or whatever. So then the delivery is organized, the material is on site, and sometimes there's the answer of the guy who's waiting for the material. I don't know. I've got no idea what this is meant for. What kind of material is it? And beside that, there's a client who sometimes says, I've got no idea what's going on my side. And our little idea, what we try to figure out or try to reach a bit, is being kind of central logistics or central site manager, where all these information can or should be controlled. So that all orders should go into, let's say, into that cloud, and all these information should be there. Even the information from the manufacturer who brings the material on site or to the site should go to the central site manager, so that we've got a kind of live tracking. Where is the material? What issues do we have for the material? How will it be handled? Where is it exactly? Or something like the characteristics of the material. This is a needful and very helpful information, and this is one of our points where we try to bring us in ourselves with our business, and that's sometimes hard work. As we said, we have to. I cannot translate that. But there's a lot of things to do, and what we try to make us clear, or from our perspective, sometimes we are more reactive on site, and unfortunately, there's not often given the chance to be proactive. So that means we've got a ballpark, and we do the coordination of transports. We're using the time slots management for the coordination. We do the unloading, we do the storage and the hub management, for example. And yes, we do the transportation to the installation on the site. That's what we do. But we try to have some future claims and try to figure that out, to get or to help all the participants or stakeholder to get sometimes a standard for material handling on site. We think that there could be a connection between the scheduling and the material process on site. So there must be a connection, and that there is one day, one information on data on management on site for material. So, and this is our future ballpark. Could be. That's the short overview about what we do, about we'd like to do, and the problems and necessities we have on site regarding the construction logistics. And that's all I wanted to show you. Now, I think you can still hear me. So, have you got any comments or questions or whatever? The standard you want to develop for material handling, is that going to be an ISO or buildingSMART or both? So to be honest, let's say it like that, I don't care. I really don't care because I'm not in the situation. I'm not in the position to make the rules, or to provide a standard. If there is any standard, it would be helpful. So should be or could be in ISO or buildingSMART or both. I don't mind. So it could be or should be very helpful getting any standard. Would you like the buildingSMART community to help in the process? Yes, sure. If possible, I don't know whether it's possible for us, but I'd like to join the community, maybe together with my colleague, the head of the programming and the head of IT, and yeah, for sure.
So, dear buildingSMART international community, welcome. Welcome from Schindler, a company that elevates. And especially a warm welcome from my side, Julian Stähli. I'm the product manager of Schindler Switzerland, and from Andreas Pilot, who is my co-speaker today, who is managing director at Planet Set Consulting and leads the BIM laboratory at the University of Darmstadt. We are here today to give you an industry input on how data consistency is key to drive successfully information exchange in the whole building life cycle in both directions, to and from the building, and how neutral and platform independent data models are driving that. But first, I'd like to give a brief introduction about Schindler and what we do. Every second, 2 people move into a city. So that already makes 8 people while I spoke that sentence. Global megatrends like growing cities and aging people ask for technology and smart urban mobility. And this is exactly what Schindler provides in all possible segments, whether it's a residential segment in China, whether it's an office building in New York or a healthcare center in Switzerland, we do have the right solution for your choice. Now, Schindler is actually headquartered since 1874 near Lucerne, Switzerland. And we do have production facilities across the globe, in China, India, Americas, but also still in Switzerland. Our R&D and digital business sites are located across the globe, as well as training center where we train our installation and service teams on method, tools, and especially on safety. So you can see a truly global player from Auckland to Toronto or from Buenos Aires to Beijing. No introduction about the company without any numbers, but I just would like to pick 2 of them. You can see we are going to celebrate in 2 years the 150th birthday of the company, and our global family consists of more than 69,000 employees. But what does actually urban mobility really means? We do install and service elevators, escalators, and moving walks, do connect them all to the cloud for better and predictive maintenance, and convert them through digitalization into digital communication platforms for the users. But now let's come to actually why you are here, about the interfaces through the life cycle of the building. A life cycle of the building is about 50 to 75 years. This number definitely varies from country to country, but it's actually a good average. The life cycle of an elevator, on the other hand, the machine in your building, is about 15 to 20 years. That does not mean that after 20 years, an elevator will not work any longer, but components and spare parts have to be replaced and alternatives have to be found. So that actually makes out of a building life cycle that he has to integrate 2 to 3 times an elevator lifetime. So each building sees up to 2 to 3 elevators in its whole life cycle. So what does that actually mean for us? We do support our customers with the right choice for the new installations and support him with an excellent service throughout the lifetime of the elevator. We do provide not only green and sustainable options, but moreover, data-driven predictive maintenance, as mentioned before, and allow the repair on site before the service actually fails. After the end of the life cycle of the first elevator, we do provide modernization options by either replacing the installation partially, or we do upgrade existing shafts with the elevator model and of the last generation, which fits the existing shaft the best. Obviously, also for this modernized elevator, we do provide the existing installation service afterwards. Now imagine if Schindler has 69,000 employees. How many of them are actually the stakeholders of the building? Actually, the building life cycle, all of them are stakeholders. It's not only that the focus on the elevator and building varies for each person, but moreover, information is handed over from one to the other, not only on Schindler's side, but also on the building side. Imagine throughout the life cycle of the building, there are even different generations of employees involved, all talking different technical languages, but needed the data from the same building and from the same elevator. So in a summary, we do not only have one building life cycle starting from new installation with the elevator in the new building, but then followed by its service, the modernization, again, second service, and moreover, any other modernization to come. So quite some involved people. So what are actually the challenges we do face when it comes to a building life cycle? We have a lot of different customers and stakeholders in each life cycle. We have different generations, as mentioned before. Throughout the life cycle, we have different knowledge bases and fading of information from one step to the other. We have different customer requirements, whether it is in the planning phase or in the facility management phase. We have different information need and requests. We have different interfaces, different technical languages in different industries, and last but not least, different code and standards across the globe, and sometimes even country or regional specific. And therefore, the consistency of the data model is an absolute key to us. And now, for the second part of the presentation, I would like to hand over to Andreas, who will give you more details according to the new installation process on how we do achieve this consistency with the help of BIM.
So as Julian has shown, different information about elevators for different purposes is needed in different forms by different people and organizations at different points in the life cycle. And achieving consistency and uniform interfaces is not realistic in short term, which is why the concept at Schindler is start small. And I will now briefly explain what that means. To begin with, we basically assume that the method of creating drawings with two-dimensional line tools and updating them when changes are made will gradually be replaced more and more by the BIM method. Increasingly, the model will then be adapted to automatically generate updated drawings. The overriding goal here is consistency, in best case throughout the entire life cycle. But to achieve this, it's helpful to first structure the requirements. So who needs the information? What kind of information is needed? Also the question, when is it needed? How? And overall, why? What is the reason for that? Start small at Schindler means to start with rethinking the planning phase of new installations. And this phase was chosen to be defined as what can be called a fully described model-based process that answered all these 5 questions. Schindler therefore became involved in the interdisciplinary committee of the VDI 2552 sheet 11.5 in order to achieve standardization and prototype testing of the processes. And it turned out that even the planning phase needed 3 different subphases, A, B, and C, to describe the different use cases and the details of each phase. The order in which information is delivered by whom actually looks the same within all 3 phases of planning. But the answers to the question what, how, and why, they are different in each phase. So there are different approaches to the planning phase. One is the traffic analysis. That's a model-based process with direct communication between Schindler and the customers. And there is also research on how traffic analysis for high-rise buildings based on data from architectural models are possible in very, very early planning phases. However, this very, very interesting topic was not initially chosen for the start small approach. You might also know that there is Schindler Plan and Design, an online configurator where customers can get information for the planning phase without direct communication, but based on live data, other than using downloaded parametric objects that might be outdated. But talking about consistency on a model-based data exchange, the journey from closed to open BIM starts with the understanding that building models already provide information that is needed for planning an elevator. So what we see here is an architectural model of phase B that includes an IFC transport element which represents what the architect already knows. An elevator is required. It approaches all floors and their top floor edge is already known. So the detour by generating 2D plans, the interpretation of these plans, and the input of the data into one's own software to create an elevator model can be dispensed with if one can use the data in the model directly and ideally in a standardized manner. There are actually mandatory requirements and other details that may or may not already be known. The architect had already determined at this stage by the placement of the opening that the doors could only open in a certain direction. And this requirement can be found as sliding to left in the model too, as you see here. The demonstration we just saw was exactly happening according to the BPMN scheme from VDI 2552 sheet 11.5 that we saw before, and that might have given you an impression of a very theoretical construct. But we now switch from the building model creation to the elevator model creations, and we're switching the so-called swimming lanes of that scheme. So the who is different now. The data provided by the architect's model is now used to create an elevator model. What looks like a 2D drawing again is an editing interface for the model. As you can see on the left, everything changes simultaneously and consistently. As a next step, the elevator model is exported in the standardized level of development. The IFC file includes only those elements that are now relevant to check if this elevator planning fits to the surrounding building parts, such as walls, etc. We also see that the requirements which led to this specific elevator type and its specific configuration are included in the model. This kind of documenting the requirements right in the model makes this information highly accessible for anyone working with this specific model from now on, even with different models from different sources, which need to be checked if they're all based on the same requirements. This is included in the IFC file here. And all these objects and their level of geometry, as well as the required and optional specifications, were defined in VDI 2552 sheet 11.5, not only for phase B, as we see here in the middle, which was the example in the demonstration, but also for the preceding phase A, which has a lower level of development, and also the following phase C on the right. So we dived deep into Schindler's start small strategy in standardizing model-based interdisciplinary workflows. And to get back to the bigger picture, let me show Schindler's solutions for the challenges of a consistent planning process Julian showed you on a previous slide. So we have this on the left, and now let's talk about the solutions. You saw first that easy access is like key to what we do here, to provide up-to-date planning data for every customer and stakeholder. Secondly, also you saw that we work on early entries into the construction projects, also on high-rise buildings, to do optimization and traffic analysis at a very, very early stage. We're talking about input requirements and also minimum output, and that is wrapped up in the open exchange format IFC, so that the minimum input requirements and the output requirements are defined. What you also saw is that depending on the phase in which the process is, there are flexible definitions for every output data sets. So it's depending on what is needed and what is known at that stage. Some things are required and others are optional and can be added later. The use of uniform technology based on applicable norms is part of the solution that Schindler is working on. And the automatic connection between the configurators and the model is like independent from software and tools. And as you might already have recognized, this very much sounds like OpenBIM here. As this journey has just begun, there's more to come, and I don't want to miss introducing you to that guy here, who has one job. He's doing the drilling work in shafts for installing elevators for us. And let me assure you, this guy will never ask for a drawing. And with that, I'll hand the floor back to Julian Stähli for Think Big, which is to follow Start Small.
So do we. If you look again on the life cycle of the building, growth of the relevant data throughout the life cycle is continuously growing. It all starts, as mentioned, with the traffic analysis in an early stage, and even might consider a future use case of the building, and planning and fulfillment progress or material handling on site is followed. Throughout the service life cycle of that elevator, we do exchange information, real-time data from the elevator to the facility management. With our brand new collaboration platform called Schindler CoLab, which is a secure and modular building integration toolbox for data exchange. When it comes to the first modernization, the as-is situation is absolute key to actually do an improvement analysis afterwards, and then followed by the planning and fulfillment progress again. And so on, it actually continues through the whole life cycles of the 1, 2, 3, or even 4 elevators throughout the building life cycle. So as we started small with project-specific exchanges between different parties, all of us are already thinking big about automation, efficiency growth possibilities, and so on. But what do we actually need in between? We definitely need definitions and standards, globally valid and based on existing ones. This includes a framework for real-time data, but also includes process definition throughout the whole life cycle, and most importantly, it has to be one global standard solution. Otherwise, every continent or even every country is making its own definitions. And this would make it very complicated. So one global standardized model would actually increase efficiency globally for a certain industry. And with that, basically, we would like to say thank you and ask you how we can elevate you.
So,
now we can hear you even.
Yeah, at least that's great. Yeah.
Wow.
So we have technical issues. So if you now we hear also you. So perhaps we should have left myself in the stream. That could be a finding. for next session. So I can't see questions in the chat. So to all the audience, so if you have questions, you should put them in the chat, because if you open the audio for all of the participants, then probably we will get into chaos. Well, yeah, there is a question in the room. That's easy.
Now I'm asking again the famous question. Can you hear me? Is it okay that I'm asking this question? Wonderful.
Yes.
So I have a question, and we were talking a couple of times about providing a kind of active BIM service, let's call it, in projects. Is this really a service driven by people on your side, or is there a configurator, a tool, something automatic behind it? Or is it an active part done by you?
I think I will take this question. So basically, as I mentioned in my presentation, we are the machine in the building. And if we would say every building is a prototype, kind of, where the planning is directly related to the specific building, the elevator isn't. So we try to actually provide standardized elevators into the building, meaning all our processes in the background are automated and are standardized. So if you actually see a planning tool online, this is basically real-time data from what are we finally producing at the very end.
Okay.
So obviously, we also do improvement cycles. This is about 3 times a year. So there might be one change from one cycle to the next, but actually what you see online is real-time data of what is actually leaving the factory at the same day. If this answers the question.
It does. Thanks.
Are there other questions in the room? Yes, please.
Do you provide like a plugin for a CID from your configurator you have on the website? Or do you plan on doing so in the future?
We do actually think about how we are going to handle that. Currently, we do provide IFC, and this is actually country specific. In some countries, you can get them directly from the online planning tool, and in other configurators, in other countries, you actually need to contact the sales. This is because of the approaches the different countries do have. But plugins right now into the CAD, in the specific CAD models, we do not plan to do, because of the idea of having one global standardized solution. So we actually are pushing hardly for a complete IFC model, which then can be imported and hopefully also has one time a certain bidirectional communication way. That would be our wish. Because as I mentioned, we have standardized products which have to fit into a prototype. And what is ideal is if that actually works independently and bidirectional.
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, you are kind of in the egg and chicken questions. You would provide the standard, and the architect would design its shaft to your standards. Is that right? Or do you have cases where you have to adapt your products to the information the architect delivers?
We actually do provide planning data since almost 15 years. Obviously, it all started in the 2D world, and in many countries is actually the way that we provide the data, and then the architect is planning with our data. But as we speak, the idea is to automate those processes so that it actually becomes easier from every step to the next, and also for the architect. But again, mentioning we can provide every elevator into every shaft. The question is only, is it the load you actually really intend to have? Is it a standardized model, so optimized also in terms of prices and costs on both sides? Or is it a special solution just because to fit it actually according to your planning? So we have all ranges of elevators available. But if we speak about efficiency, obviously it's the best to get a standardized product from our side, which fits you the best.
Other questions in the room? Did we get anything?
Just a comment. Don't be so shy. Let the others speak from the outside. It won't get chaos. I have many experience with my students.
Probably yes. Yeah. I'm not sure how easy it is with the system to open the audio for all the audience, but we could try. So that we open the microphone for all participants so that they also can ask questions in audio and not only by chat. Is this possible? You're challenging technical people. But we still learn. It will be for the rest of the audience, for all participants.
But maybe I can add something to the answer to the last question, which was about when does a stakeholder enter the process. If you take a closer look in the norm VDI 2552.11.5, you will see that there's no defined entry point. So you can enter the process in phase A when you just have like what stories will the building have, and nothing else. And some minimum requirements, like there has to be an elevator and it's for people and not for load. So that will be enough to get back a model of LOD 100, which shows which dimensions the shaft has to have. And then you can, as an architect like me, I can use that shaft to create the staircase and the shaft around it, like the walls and stuff. And with that, I can dive into the process again and do more specific configurations and requirements, and get back the information about the openings and where the doors have to be placed. And this is like a process ongoing for a while until we're in phase C, where like everything is defined to be ordered. So this is a 3-step process, but you can enter at whatever point you want. If you have an existing building, for instance, the first step, phase A, won't make any sense. So you will enter like in phase B with defined walls and see what kind of elevators would fit in there. So this process is like open for entry points wherever you are with your project.
Good. It looks that we don't get questions online. Any other questions in the room? Otherwise, I would switch back to my presentation and go to closing. So thank you very much for Julian and Andreas, and also for Dirk, if he's still in, for your contribution. If we will get any further questions afterwards, then we'll let you know and bring you into the loop. Then if there's something specific, you can provide support. So otherwise, I would go on with my presentation. Perhaps as long as we don't have it yet back. Well, it's not by accident that we invited Schindler and Zeitlock. We also invited, by the way, Stora Enso, so it's in industrial manufacturing, in wood manufacturing. Pardon? No. Well, listen, leave it. Okay. It was not by accident to have the 3 companies in, because they have different requirements and a different approach to the topic. So we usually, out of the building construction industry, we have this inside-out view. We are very happy having digital twins. We are talking about ecosystems of digital twins. We heard yesterday that we put this ecosystem of digital twins into the GIS space and so on and so forth. But usually it's more about kind of online transaction process. So each stakeholder, each participant in the project is using IT data information mainly for his specific online transaction process. So an architect or planner works with a 3D CAD because he needs a model and he needs some information and he needs some geometry orientation and so on. That a contractor works with another model or with another system, an engineer works with another system, but it's mainly to support their transactions, their processes. Nobody is thinking about an information system, and nobody has the task and also the the duty to build up an information system. And therefore, we have the issue that people would have to process data and information and provide data information that is not for them, it's not for their specific use. It's for use of another one in a later process step, or perhaps in parallel, but it's not for himself. Well, if you do something like this in a company, so if you change a company to process orientation, usually do it if you implement SAP. Because SAP is not a software system, it's a processing. And if you implement SAP in a company, then you have the same issue. So that all of a sudden people, for example, in a sales back office, have to provide data information, have to do tasks that is more work than before, and it's not for them. It's because in the company say, yeah, well, but afterwards in service management or in sales or in production or in R&D, it's easier. So therefore you have to provide this information. And then people in your sales back office say, well, but then we have not enough people. And you provide more people. So you take costs because you have a benefit somewhere else. So in the building and construction industry, it's unfortunately that you have more work and more costs in areas that are in single or in own legal entities. So they have to provide something that you generate them costs because you have a benefit in another stage of the process. Where, for example, a lot of benefits you have, for example, in facility management, you're running a building. But these are exactly the people that are not involved at the beginning, right at the beginning. So if anybody would have to take the cost, it would have been facility management and running the building, but they are not involved. And they will not pay, because paying will be an investor or an owner. And that's usually not the one that does the facility management afterwards. Yes, Russell?
It's even worse. So that people are asked at certain states to enter attributes. They don't have the information.
Yeah.
So I have was a couple of projects which were not in this SAP, but where people had to provide properties or values for properties. And at this stage,
they don't have them.
So that is, they said to me, okay, then we make it with SAP. We just put anything in it.
Yeah, correct. But I think that's another issue. And in combination, that's the reason that I like the Schindler example, because that's a plant in a building. It's probably as complex as the building itself. It has a different life cycle, different stakeholders. If you take somebody as Schindler, so also a plant manufacturer, they will not provide data because it's intellectual property. They will never ever. And this fixed idea of building and construction, that you have this all people, making all people happy, digital twin with all information, all data, Schindler will not provide your data because it's their data. Usually they do even then the maintenance, they do also the renewal of the plant. And they have several life cycles within the life cycle of the building. So that's another complexity we do not address today. Then if you take logistics, that's something that's quite hard for the building construction process. But if you look at the costs and the efficiency of building construction, it's huge. They don't get any information at all. They are not happy with the digital twin. They need different data, they need it real time, they need it faster, and they need it to work with it, so that they can't wait. But it's a huge potential in it if they would get more information or get more data, probably also they need back. But if you hear that they even do not know if they get a delivery, so a truck comes to the construction site and delivery, and they even don't know, is it really for this construction site? They don't know. So load it off, put it there, and then we look afterwards, and then 3 months later on it's waste because it was not for this construction site. The construction site was thought for. They had to order it new because they didn't get it, and stuff like this. Then a Store Ensa would have been interesting because they are more working that need guidelines and information from planning from the construction site for really manufacturing, and then they are talking about systems. Also, Schindler is talking about systems. Also, other providers are talking about systems. So it's not only product but material. And they are interested to get then an online and real-time data. So it's more about data provisioning, so not about data providing. So this export-import idea that we usually do, and if you heard also the speakers yesterday, it's all about export-import. Well, IC supports mainly export-import. It's a data exchange format. So that's what we have today. And that's why we work with it. But if you look into an industrial manufacturing of components for building construction, they are asking for real-time and three-directional data providing and data access. Also, Schindler mentioned, they are talking then also about real-time operational data they are interested in. And on the other side, if you take logistics side up, or perhaps also e-commerce, it's also about real-time data provisioning and data using, and always bidirectional. And that's a little bit the reason that I'm quite happy to have at least two of them here. We had a little bit longer time in the preparation in an internal workshop in September. But it leads to the request that we should start to understand the processes around it. And if I talk about the processes, I think bigger than we do usually, where we talk about plan, build, run. Because you have the engineering in, you have manufacturing in, you have wholesale in, you have maintenance in, you have facility management in. And if you think then even also in the dimensions of yesterday of circular economy, then you also have deconstruction in. And then you have to start to understand, well, what are then really the important use cases where different stakeholders are working together, and what kind of information is requested in these use cases. And the next step would then be to understand, well, and which use cases are then really key. So where do we have potential? So it's not worthwhile to focus somewhere on some additional attributes or some additional objects in a use case or in a process with that doesn't provide a lot of increase in efficiency and productivity. You have to focus there as well. There is a lot in. I expect logistics is probably one of them. There is a lot in if you really focus there. So that you need then, if you understand the process, you have to understand in a kind of enterprise architecture, where is the beef? So where should we focus? Where is really something in for the industry if you can become better? And last but not least, it's then at the end, then really the information management. So what information, and then first we talk about objects, about properties, and about dimensions and whatever. So that is what we started in this repositioning of the product too. So a little bit it's about taking care about this overall process. Because honestly, if you look at the building construction industry, nobody owns it. It's probably the only industry I know where you have an overall very important process and nobody feels really responsible for it. At least, I would say in Switzerland, Central Europe, I think also mainly Asia. I'm not that sure in the area of US, Canada, UK could be a little bit different. That you have more responsibility at one organization, but usually there is nobody that cares about it. If I look, especially in Switzerland, a bit, you have one organizations that are responsible for the overall process. That's usually public office. So they pay it, they plan it, and they let it implement, and they run it afterwards. But then you usually have two departments. So one is for planning and implementing or construction, and the other one is then for running and maintenance. Different political processes, different budgets, and different responsibilities. And even they do not care about the overall process. And I think that could be an option or an opportunity for the product room that in this kind of product and material information and data, looking at this process map and start to care about the overall process. And really focus then on the use cases, the important use cases that really can change the game. And then talk about information management, information flow in these use cases over the whole process map. So that at least somewhere you have a kind of a melting point to say that we care about the overall process and information flow within a building construction project. So that was the idea of the session today, to get a little bit this industry input, and I expect we need more of them to understand it better. We have then, and now I go further on, just that I do not forget anything. That's about this thing. That we have then tomorrow afternoon 2 workshops where we'd like to go a little bit in deepness to start to understand together with you, and then hopefully eventually it works also with some people outside. To dig a little bit deeper, to get a better understanding if the community also sees this priority and this need that somebody start to care about it, and if the product will be the right one. Then we'll probably need then some more steps to get deeper, and then hopefully, at least in an activity proposal, to start to shape this project. I know then there's a lot to do. We need the right people, and we probably funding. Today I would expect that in the project when we do not have the right people, that is not a nightmare. It's just an observation. So that probably we need to address all the people that support. We need to probably also really know how, in the sense of drawing a process map, and then going on, and hopefully go into this kind of project. So that's it, the goal of the Thursday afternoon. We have 2 sessions. It's the same workshop, but we will work in the second part of the workshop with the outcome of the first part. So people that spend time in both workshops, I would expect them to go deeper together with us. If you don't have the time, then go only in the first, or sit into the second workshop and just provide us a little bit more information, or more of work that was done before, and go further on there. So you can do both, only the first, only the second, or both workshops. I would be very happy to have you and other people in, because I need a mandate from the community that the product room is the right place, and it is a topic that is important, should be done, so that we can go forward and really start to shape. So happy for this, and that's really a preview on Thursday afternoon. This afternoon we have sessions together with the airport room, I guess. Also 2 sessions. This process map is also part of it. So also all the rooms have seen that is potentially an issue. We should work on it. If it's then really in the product room, I hope yes. If it's in another room, also okay. There I'm quite relaxed. Then tomorrow morning we have 2 other sessions. So one session is an update about standards, ISO and SEN. Very important one. Use it because you get it for free. That you get another update that is going on in ISO and SEN. I think that's an interesting one. And we have another session about activity proposals, or right on the border to beginning a project. In the product room, so one is the IFC for products, and the other one is this environmental performance declaration property sets in buildingSMART data dictionary. I hope I said it right. Where we have, I also mentioned we have these ISO issues about intellectual property. It seems that it shouldn't be an issue, so that we really could provide it in the buildingSMART data dictionary. And for me, only an interesting part to show that yes, if you have a single and good use case, you also can talk about information in the sense of which properties, which dimensions, and so on and so forth. But if you don't have the specific use case, it's difficult, because then you are on a very, very high flying level. It is difficult to talk about the technology implementation. You can understand the process. But here in this case, it makes a lot of sense. So that explains a little bit the outlook of today and tomorrow. Happy to have you in again, and open if you have now questions to the presentations we had. Try to answer them if I can, or to the next sessions we will run with the product tool or the future position of the product tool. So there I'm open. Heavily overtime. Okay, I'm here. If you want to go for a coffee, and then come to me. That I will give you those questions. So thank you very much. I apologize for the technical issues we had. We are learning. Thank you.